Hello, today we're going to talk about system status management. And before we get started, I just want to let you know what you have in front of you. Two articles that I'm going to touch on, and if you'd like to read later in their full entirety, I have provided those for you. A map that I'm going to go over, and just a copy of the presentation if you'd like to take some notes. System status management was developed in the 1980s by Jack Stout. And one of the easiest definitions I found for it is that it's a computer-based system where historical call data are used to deploy the ambulance fleet for optimal response times and to predict where the next cluster of calls is likely to occur. Some of the pros of system status management is that it can be used to improve response times, which in turn can improve patient outcome, and it can be utilized to improve coverage for the anticipated prime call areas. However, on the other side, some of the cons are that it increases wear and tear on the medic units. When we're driving to and from posts all day long, it increases mileage on the trucks, which requires more frequent PMs, increases the cost of repairs and parts, and increases our diesel costs due to all the driving back and forth, and we're having to get fuel more often. It decreases the coverage in areas with anticipated low call volume. If areas like McClellanville or Edisto aren't showing up that there's going to be a call in those areas, we're not going to have a medic unit assigned out there. And that's a concern for not only the public, but for those of us that have worked out there. We feel that those people are just as worthy of a medic unit being stationed out there as the people of North Charleston or Mount Pleasant. It increases the risk of injury for personnel. The CDC says that you're at higher risk of a DVT if you're sitting for 4 hours or more or have limited movement. When you're in the truck all day long, while you might not be in there for a steady 4 hours, there's certainly not a lot of room to move, and your risk for DVT increases with age or if you're obese. And a study by SpineUniverse.com showed that in the US and Sweden, 50% of drivers surveyed had low back pain, as well as those in cars for an increased period of time were at increased risk for neck and low back pain. And again, when we're in the truck for the majority of our 12-hour shifts, that certainly puts us in that increased risk category. So I think if we're looking at a system status management, we have to consider what are our goals. For instance, do response times really matter? A survey performed in New Mexico in an area that has a population of 800,000 people, and here in Charleston we service approximately 372,000. And this system runs the same amount of calls, approximately 50,000 per year, and responds to a 5-hospital base and 1 trauma center, where we have 10 hospitals and 1 trauma center. This study looked at patients complaining of shortness of breath, chest pain, penetrating trauma, and MVAs. And their primary question was, does response time change whether the patients have an increased length of stay, admission, ICU admission, or overall death? And the results of this study showed that no, it doesn't. Whether the response time was less than 4 minutes, between 4 and 8 minutes, or greater than 8 minutes, for the patients with these 4 complaints, the response time made no difference in their outcome. So that's something for us to consider if this is one of the goals or reasons for why we would be changing to this type of system. A 2015 EMS World article titled, "Should Response Times Be an Indicator of Performance?" Most of the contributors say no. They feel that we should find a better way to measure our performance, especially in a world where we are now having so many more things that can show what kind of job we're doing. And we have many more indicators to show how we do our jobs. And those are the 2 articles that I've provided for you if you'd like to read them in full at a later time. To add to that, is system status management truly accurate? Although system status management is widely used, there have been no published analytical studies evaluating the process. So, approximately 10 years ago, which yes, it was 10 years, but I don't think much has changed since then when it comes to this. There was a study performed that looked at 7 systems of varying size and call volume to analyze the accuracy of the system status model. They collected data over 20 weeks to gather a baseline, and then they spent the next 52 weeks doing a test to see how accurate it was. And the accuracy as a result was only between 10 and 19%, which when they looked at it financially, they were overstaffing about 75 to 86% of the time, which was between 2 and 4 ambulances. And it may not seem like a big deal, but to those of us on the street, when you're that ambulance just roaming around or driving from one post to another while there's no calls going out, and you feel like your back is killing you, you can't stop and go to the bathroom, you haven't eaten 4 hours, it does feel like a big deal. So we have to look at, is this something that we truly want to transition to? So how do we make it work for us? If this is something that we want to do, what's the best way to do it for Charleston County? We need a supply system that's open 24 hours a day. It needs to be staffed with knowledgeable or EMS-based personnel. Currently, our system is only open approximately the hours of 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. So we do have 3 different areas where we can restock some drugs and other items that we use on calls. However, if we need IV supplies, oxygen supplies, or other things, we can only get those during certain hours. And that tends to be a problem. If we run out of them, we can't get them all the time. Also, if we're going to transition to that, we need to have multiple fully stocked resupply stations. We need to be able to get those supplies at all the supply lockers, not just one area. I would also suggest that we go to staggered deployment and reevaluate our post assignments. Again, I've already touched on it, but many of the complaints we currently have is that when you're out in post assignments or when you're driving around, people feel like they can't get out to go to the bathroom, or that they can't eat or get a snack or just get out of the truck and walk around. Especially at nighttime are the places that we're posting trucks. Do people feel safe to get out and do those, or do they even have the opportunity to do those things? I understand that it may not be the prime priority, but we have to look at both aspects, our patients and our staff. This is the map that I've provided for you, and I'm going to go over what it means. But this is the suggested deployment that I would think is the best model for us to move to. I think that we should start out with what's similar to a minimum staffing 24 hours a day. Have a total of 11 medic units staffed 24 hours a day, 9 units that are in locations similar to stations that we have now. 1 in the Edisto Ravenel area, 1 in James Island, 1 in Johns Island / Kiowa, 1 in West Ashley, 1 downtown, 2 in North Charleston, and 2 in Mount Pleasant. 2 24-hour roaming trucks, the 5 Charlie units that we already have planned, and then we look at staggering deployment to supplement the rest of our staffing throughout the day. At 9 and 10 o'clock, we add 1 additional medic unit. At 11, 1, 3, and 4, we add 2 additional medic units. And at 5 p.m., we add 1 additional medic unit. Adding these staggered medic units throughout the day provides coverage to help supplement the staffing that we wouldn't have for the 24-hour medic units. You might ask yourself why we would look at doing it this way. Well, our current 24-hour staffing and attempts to utilize the SSM model results in redundant posting, staff exhaustion and burnout, and vehicle breakdown. Currently, a lot of staff feels as if we're using the SSM model, but we're not currently calling ourselves system status management. For instance, in District 8 or 14, one of those trucks may post all day long with minimal calls. It exhausts our staff, and it's not really what we want to be doing. Staggering shifts allows for total coverage of the county with emphasis on the periods of time where prime call volume is anticipated without promoting staff fatigue. I truly feel that if we were to look at doing it this way, it's the best way that we can utilize system status management for the benefit of Charleston County. Thank you, and I hope you enjoyed this presentation on system status management.